right, so I'm here with Shane. My name is Jameer. We're with Subblock to City Block.
Yeah.
And, we're talking about Black August. We're looking forward to August. We're
Yeah.
here coming up on the end of May. What are your thoughts as we're sitting here, 2.5 or so months before, our Sacramento Black August commemorations start off?
Oh, my thoughts is for the most part that I hope it'll be a good turnout because the fact is here. I think it's time that the real story about Black August be told. There's a lot of myth that's out there concerning Black August. There's a lot of myths about the people that's connected with Black August. And in this year, it is my intentions, along with others too, is to come out and bring out the real story because I think if people hear the real story, it would be something that will be heartfelt to them and something that they will appreciate and respect. One thing I notice about even in America, despite some of the, things that we're known for, I say we because we, I'm a part of this country, we tend to be off-putting, but one thing we do like here, man, we love a patriotic story, and this one is, man, this is no less than any patriotic story that have ever been told, since the foundation of this country, as we know it, yeah.
Right, and so, we're talking about this story. Why don't you start it from the very beginning of where, our people's story starts on this, new situation after, the transatlantic slave trade and the horrors of the Middle Passage. What is the origins of our nation?
Well, we picked it up during the 60s. That's when it was brought to us. We picked it up during the 60s when all of the different, uprising movements, if you will, was occurring, and this is where we picked it up. Black August itself, the commemoration of Black August itself was adopted in prison. Now, the movement that was behind, that eventually would bring the commemoration of Black August, was a movement that wasn't nothing new. It was done out of the spirit of all those that came before. You can mention Marcus Garvey, Malcolm X, Nat Turner, Denmark Vesey, Harriet Tubman. So all the ones, so it's a continuous, and it's just a link in a continuous chain that that will continue to add links to it as long as there's conditions that calls for that type of change to continue to have links to it. So we pick it up right there. And what this was created, what was going on in prison at the time, that brothers was really subjected to what you would call to wholesale slaughter. We have all the film and the tapes of things that went on in the 60s. We're talking about a free society on the outside of prison. You had the dogs, you had the water hoses, you had the false arrests, you had the false charges, the false incarcerations, the hangings that still was going on in some part of the country, the lynchings, the discrimination, the not allowed here and not allowed here, those policies, those upper class, lower class policies, or those racist policies that put them superior and made it superior, it was at its peak. It showed its ugly face at that time. Well, in prison, you hear me saying this was going out here. At least in prison, you could have protests. Despite whatever the outcome was, whatever they had to face, you can have protests. You had people that was advocating. You had people in mass enough to where it drew world attention and public attention. The conditions out here was dire, but far more so in prison, because nobody at that time, it didn't really matter what race you were in prison. Prison was considered a prison. Everybody frowned on you, you went to prison. No matter if you was in there for false charges or not, you were frowned upon. You was considered an outcast society. Nobody even cared about you. They just knew what you was. So you take that racial supremacy mind, and you have correctional guards that's of that. Now you grant them the opportunity where there's no recourse to carry out, some of the things that some of those violent acts that they want to carry out their viciousness amongst our people, what they were known for. But under this thing, there was no recourse. They forced brothers to have to form in order to protect themselves, in order to survive, in order to sustain themselves. Because pretty much, like I said, they were it's a wholesale slaughter. It was so bad to the point it is that you had two races. If every time it was a black, you had two races going at it. They could all, have knives. Or say, for instance, white guys had knives and black guys didn't have knives. You had white police that was just shooting, killing black people. They had a shoot and kill policy in prison at that time. Now, granted, I'm not blaming nothing on the white guys that's there, because that was another thing. In our foundation, George Jackson reached out to other races. Look, this is us. We're all, so they're doing it to us. It's only a matter of time they're going to come back and do it to you. It's going to always have somebody they need to pick on. So his thing was he reached out to them. He reached out to them to get at them like that. So we're not blaming them per se, but the fact that they chose to take the road that they took, you know what I'm saying, when they allowed CDC to foment that separation, then that's what brought about, okay, then we have to protect ourselves. We can't count on nobody else. All we have is us. And that's what brought us about. But like they said, that was just, for that particular purpose, that was for prison in particular. But the spirit itself is one that we embody because that's a spirit that has been passed down from generation to generation since the transatlantic slavery. And until we get to that point that we feel that we can fully identify ourselves and we're in charge of our affairs and we have our independence, and we're not talking about separation from the government, but the independence to counter all our affairs, our own economic affairs, our own political affairs, our own military affairs, our own educational affairs, our own history and things like that. This is a fight that will continue on. And that's the thing we want to do with Black August. That's the thing that I personally want to do with Black August this year, and I hope everybody's on the same page with that, is to bring back that knowledge so people can know. Because like I said, if you don't tell people what happened, those conditions will come back again. Matter of fact, I keep my ear to what's going on in prison right now. I hear the conditions as start representing themselves again. So here we go. Just as George said, if we don't remain vigilant, everything that we fought for, you know what I'm saying, they will indeed come back. And that's just, everybody don't look at this inside the lens of I'm just speaking about prison, because I'm not. That's the same thing as out here. We've seen it out here. We've seen them give us things and take it back. This is a character. This is a behavioral trait. You know what I'm saying? That's so ingrained in them that they've done it to everybody. They've done it to everybody that they promise something to, and they will give so much of it, and they come with, and some later on down the line come with a reason to take it all back.
Right. I mean, we're here, on occupied, stolen, indigenous land.
Yeah.
We know about the numerous treaties that they signed with, the indigenous people all across this country.
Yeah.
Only to, take those people and basically resign them to where they are now.
Right.
In the reservations, which, essentially is like a glorified large concentration camp.
Right.
Which, even a concentration camp, you could argue they are required to provide water. Right, which the reservations barely have access to. You mentioned some of those conditions in prison.
Yeah.
Starting to get worse off. Almost starting to return to the conditions of before. Could you talk about some of those conditions that people are having to struggle through currently?
Currently, they struggle from no program, some things have gotten better. The things have gotten better for the purpose of pacifying prisoners. The purpose of pacifying prisoners. That's one thing about it. When they feel that they've been pushed too hard, they will fight back. So the little luxuries that they do have is simply for that purpose, to pacify them. But when you give that to them, that keeps that person, unless he's determined, unless he's really committed, that keeps that person ignorant to everything else. And that's really essential to him. That keeps that person from making the necessary preparations that he needs to make. If you don't know if he returns home, it's for the ones that's returning home. It keeps that person from making the necessary preparations to come back and be able to function out here in a way that not only he'll be productive, but that he will overcome, he'll triumph. Because coming out of prison, you have PTSD. So these are things that you have to work on. Be mentally prepared for yourself. But I think certain things take away from that. It takes away from that person being able to develop and build themselves, because for the most part in prison, even though they say drugs and stuff in there, it is, but it's not nearly as much as out here. A lot of people are able to strengthen themselves in prison. They're able to strengthen their minds, they're strengthening their bodies and stuff like that. And a lot of those things that they give us to pacify us, it takes away from the development of those traits, that's going to give them the ability to come out here and be productive, period. Just to simply be productive. Another thing is that the educational programs are no longer present. That's one of what the ones that came before me fought for was education, because even when I came to prison, it was a mandatory program that we educate ourselves. This is probably why you can hear pretty much a lot of people. Matter of fact, a lot of people in my generation didn't know how to read. I was fortunate because I was always educated, but a lot of them wasn't as educated as I. Or a lot of them didn't know how to read at all. And this is what, they used to call us the hidden university. And this is what this has brought, this is what it's brought about. The ability to go over there and learn something. The brothers at that time were developing, you know what I'm saying? Develop your mind, develop your body, strive to go stronger, you know what I'm saying, despite the conditions. So those things are no longer there. The programs that pretty much they fought for has all been taken away. Even with the works, you know what I'm saying, the prisoners no longer get the pay numbers that they used to have. And it's not that they don't have the money to do it. You see what has happened. The system and the correctional union, they exaggerated a threat. They painted a picture in the eyes of the public and made it look like, because prison, that's another reason Waits came out of prison. Prisoners was developing themselves so much, correctional officers couldn't keep up to it. So what they did, you know, they can't come to tell the public, y'all can't handle prisoners. You've been empowered to do, you've been hired to do so. Who's gonna come out and tell that story? What we hire you guys for, you know, for real. So in order to make themselves look good and not be in the, you know what I'm saying, be under that type of scrutiny and not being able to get the job done, they took a situation and they collaborated with Pete Wilson and them, and it was a little girl named Polly Klaas, 1994, I believe it was, and they came out with the three strikes law, white guy. It came out and he broke in the house, and I guess he kidnapped the little girl and killed her and whatnot. And he made a big deal out of this. I mean, her club. I've never seen, you know, you hear stories about tragic things all the way. This was the first time I've seen something like that go worldwide. And it caused not only California, but it caused several states, if not the majority, under California's leadership, under California, of all people, you wouldn't think California leadership to come up with a 3-strike penalty. After that, you got 3-strike penalties coming up all over the place, dealing with that one type of case. And all of that was the purpose to be able to deal with prisoners. And at that point, because they say he was so big and so strong, and they used another little with an old lady. Now, granted, I ain't trying to be racist here, but the little girl was white and the old lady was white. So you already know that inflamed the passion. I mean, we've already seen whenever they feel something is done, even though, despite the fact having done that all to the people anytime, I mean, with the OJ situation, man, how can you guys say, come on, are you serious? Is this here? I don't know if he was guilty or not, but that's not the point. I mean, what about all the people lynched and hanged and all that stuff? You guys sit and let people walk out of juries, you know what I'm saying? You sat on juries that you sat on. Oh, I just can't see him doing it. I just can't do it. Everything was right there. So they took that situation, and more and more, they painted prisoners as being dangerous, and that's how they got all the things that was necessary for the development prison. That's how they got it out. This is it, but the officers started using it for their overtime. They started using funds that was allocated for that particular purpose, different prisoners' welfare. They started going to their overtime. They started going to equipment that they don't need. I mean, we see prison on social media all the time. Man, you see officers in the middle of prisoners, you know what I mean, inside of a building, no armed or nothing like that. There's a gun tower, but still, they were gonna, if he was that type of threat like that, why would you wouldn't even allow yourself to be in the space where they're at like that. So a lot of the stories that you hear about prison, they exaggerated. And do you know what these cats in prison, these cats is in prison with that damn phone, they're not helping them either. I have to say that they're not helping their situation, because they'll take something, one incident, and then it's getting glorified for whoever they want views or anything like that, and it's not helping their cause at all. Because all that does is have the public like, wow, man, for real, why are you guys even letting those guys have these things? And why this? It's not helping their cause at all. But in any event, that's what led to the current prison situation where it stands right now. You know, you still have people that's driven. You don't take from them all, but overall, for the first time, man, in my life, and I did a lot of prison time, and I know who it ought to be, and I'm not taking away from any other race or not. For the first time I've seen where blacks in prison are the majority of the drug users, and that was not like that for like 50-something years. That's what it came to. And the psychological program, the psych program, that was another thing prison started doing to you know what I'm saying, because they started coming with these different programs. Prison is based on psychology now. You gotta remember the dude that took over prison, the Secretary of Corrections, I don't think he's there anymore, but he was a psychologist major. So when he took over, he started implementing all these psychology programs. Now with psychology came psychiatry. So that's what led to a lot of giving medication, and you know what I'm saying, and this. Since so many prisons on medication right now, a lot of it is experimental. They just want to just make you dormant, you know what I'm saying, just make you a vegetable walking around and not, see if that's the case is. So, that's other than being wholesale slaughter, that was another thing people fought for, and that's wholesale slaughter. That's seriously, that's mental wholesale slaughter. Nas said in a song yesterday ago, you know what I'm saying, I ain't gonna use the N-word, he said, but to kill a person and leave him bleeding, that's nothing. But to kill a man and leave him breathing, and that's what they pretty much done. You know, pretty much you got a dead man that's really alive, but dead. And that's where it done came to that point. It was at that point before, but you know, light came now, you know what I'm saying? Georgia then was able to bring a whole new